Hello, and thanks for joining Prism English.
What if you could start over? Not just a new day, but a whole new life. Same body, same name, but no memories, no regrets, a clean slate. What would you do differently? Would you still chase the same dreams? Love the same people? Make the same mistakes? This is not a fantasy. It's a thought experiment, one that might change the way you live today. So let me tell you a story. A man wakes up in a quiet hospital room. No name, no past. Just one question in his mind. Who am I?
The man with no past. He opened his eyes to the soft hum of machines. A gentle light seeped through the window blinds. White walls, clean sheets, the sterile smell of a hospital room. But something was wrong. He didn't know where he was. Worse, he didn't know who he was. A nurse walked in with a kind smile. "Good morning," she said. "How are you feeling?" He stared at her, confused. I don't know," he replied. "Can you tell me your name?" she asked gently. He paused, opened his mouth. Nothing. There was nothing. They brought him a mirror. He looked at his own face like it was a stranger's. Mid-30s, dark hair, calm eyes, no memory attached to them. Doctors called it complete dissociative amnesia. No head injury, no trauma, just blank. Some people would panic, but strangely, he didn't. He just whispered, "So, this is a second chance." The stranger on the bench.
He was sitting on a weathered bench near the edge of the old city park. The kind of man you wouldn't notice in a crowd. Plain gray coat, a notebook on his lap, eyes lost in the falling leaves. Eli approached, unsure why he chose that bench. Maybe it was fate. Maybe it was just the only one available. But as he sat down, the old man looked up and smiled. "Rough day?" the stranger asked. Eli nodded, hesitant. "You could say that." There was a pause. Then the man pointed to the notebook. "You know, I keep track of every moment I'd live differently if I could go back." That made Eli turn. The man continued. "Every bad decision, every word left unsaid, not because I regret everything, but because reflection teaches. And sometimes you don't need to start life over. You just need to see it with new eyes." Eli didn't know what to say. He'd been drowning in regrets all day. The missed chances, the wrong turns. Yet here was someone who'd made peace with all that by simply writing them down. "Can I try that?" Eli asked. The man handed him a blank page from his notebook. "No need to write the past," he said gently. "Write how you'd begin if today was day one." Eli held the pen, paused, then wrote the first word. "Listen." He didn't know what would follow, but somehow it felt like something had begun. Small shifts, big echoes. That night, Eli didn't sleep much, not because of anxiety, but because something had shifted. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the blank page still in his pocket. Write how you'd begin if today was day one. He kept thinking about that sentence. So the next morning, he did one small thing differently. He left the house 15 minutes earlier. He walked, not drove. And for the first time in months, he noticed the bakery on the corner. An old woman was placing fresh bread on the shelf. A little boy waved at a street musician. Life was happening. Right there. Right now. At work, instead of rushing to his desk, he stopped by the intern's cubicle. "Morning, you good?" he asked. The young guy lit up, probably surprised someone noticed. At lunch, he texted his mother, "Just thinking of you." Tiny things. But by evening, Eli felt different, like something was breathing again inside him. Not the world, him. That night, he wrote more on the page. Listen, slow down, be kind first. Not exactly world-changing advice, but for Eli, it was. Because when you live long enough in regret, you forget that small things start big things. It wasn't about rewriting his past anymore. It was about rewriting his presence and letting that shape the future.
A chance encounter. 3 days later, it happened. Eli was sitting alone at a small park bench, sipping coffee, jotting notes in his journal, his second chance notebook, as he now called it. That's when a voice interrupted. "Eli?" He looked up. She hadn't changed much, just older, like him. It was Leah, the girl he once almost married, the chapter he had left half-written and never dared to reopen. He stood up, stunned. "Leah, wow, it's been years." 10, she smiled softly. "You look better, lighter, maybe." They sat, talked, laughed a little, then paused. There was a silence that felt heavier than words. She looked at him with eyes that once knew every inch of his soul. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had stayed?" she asked gently. He took a breath. "Every now and then, but I used to ask that with regret. Now I just ask it with gratitude." She blinked, surprised. "Gratitude?" "Yeah, because even if it didn't last, it taught me what love could feel like. And now I finally understand how to treat it if it ever comes back." She smiled, but then stood up, brushing off her coat. "I'm glad you're okay, Eli." She turned to leave, but just before she walked away, he called out, "Hey, Leah." "Yeah?" "Would you maybe like to start that conversation again, even just as friends?" She looked at him for a long second, and then nodded. "I'd like that." That night, Eli wrote one more line in his notebook. Sometimes the past returns not to haunt you, but to heal you.
The letter she never sent. Over the next few weeks, Eli and Leah met more often, sometimes for coffee, sometimes for long walks. No labels, no pressure, just presence. They talked like old friends, not about the past they shared, but the lives they lived apart. And then, one Sunday morning, Leah handed him a folded piece of paper. "I was going to throw it away," she said, almost whispering. "But something told me maybe you should read it." Eli opened it slowly. It was a letter, old, yellowing, dated the night he had left her 10 years ago. "Dear Eli, I don't know where you've gone, but if you're reading this, it means I never stopped hoping you'd come back someday. I wasn't angry when you left. I was just broken. Not because you disappeared, but because you didn't believe you could talk to me first. I would have listened, you know. I would have fought for us. But maybe we both weren't ready. Still, I need you to know something. You were not a mistake in my life. You were a chapter I cherished, even when it ended without warning. If fate ever brings you back, not as the man I knew, but as the man you've become, I hope we'll recognize each other. Love, Leah." Eli looked up. His hands were trembling, his heart aching and warm all at once. "Why didn't you send this?" he asked. Leah looked down at the coffee in her hands. "Because I was afraid, and then, eventually, I convinced myself you wouldn't care." "I would have," Eli said, voice cracking. "Even back then, even in the middle of my mess, I would have held on to those words. There was silence, but it wasn't painful anymore. It was healing." That night, Eli didn't write in his journal. He didn't need to, because some moments are too sacred for ink. Instead, he whispered to the wind as he walked home, "You don't always get a second chance with the same person, but if you do, treat it like a miracle."
The day everything changed. One cold morning, just before sunrise, Ethan stood alone at the edge of the river. The world around him was quiet, not because it was peaceful, but because everything had stopped. No birds sang, no wind blew, the water didn't flow. It was as if time itself had frozen. Ethan closed his eyes. He wasn't afraid anymore. For the first time, he understood the true meaning of being human. Not technology, not power, not eternal life. It was connection, memory, the fragile threads of laughter, pain, love, and loss that made life worth living. Suddenly, a faint sound broke the silence, a soft breath, a voice. "Ethan?" He turned. It was Mira. She wasn't just a memory anymore. She had returned, not in a body made of code, but in spirit, in presence. A breakthrough in consciousness transfer had worked. Not perfect, but enough. And she remembered everything. As they looked into each other's eyes, the sun broke through the clouds for the first time in years. That morning, humanity realized what makes us human isn't what we build, it's what we hold on to. Hope, love, and each other.
One life, one choice. In the final years of the fourth millennium, humanity stood at a crossroads. They had conquered death, but forgot how to live. They had explored galaxies, but lost sight of each other. They had created worlds, but abandoned the one they were born into. And then, something changed. People began returning to Earth, not because it was easier, but because they missed the sound of real waves, not simulations. They missed real voices, not coded responses. They missed making mistakes and learning from them. Ethan and Mira were not legends. They were reminders that even in 1,000 years, the soul remains. A movement began, slow at first, but growing. Humans planted forests where metal once ruled. They told stories by firelight, not hologram. They learned to speak without filters and listen without judgment. And perhaps for the first time in centuries, people cried real tears, not from pain, but from remembering what it felt like to be alive. Because no matter how far we go or how much we change, we only get one life, and it's up to us to make it human.
A message across time. If someone from the year 3025 could whisper to you now, what would they say? Maybe they wouldn't speak of flying cities or quantum dreams. Maybe they'd just say this: take a walk. Look at the sky. Really look. Call your mom. Say thank you and mean it. Hold someone's hand. Don't rush the quiet moments. Don't waste your today waiting for a better tomorrow. Because the future isn't built by machines. It's built by moments like this. By people like you. You see, the greatest discovery in 1,000 years wasn't in the stars, but in the heart. So live while it matters. Learn while you can, and love while you're here. One life, no regrets. Make it count.
The last memory before tomorrow. Before every great leap, humanity pauses, not because of fear, but because we look back, one last time, at what made us, us. We remember bedtime stories told by candlelight. We remember letters written by hand. We remember laughter over dinners, and the way silence felt when someone we loved left. In the year 3025, they have archives of everything, every book, every photo, every sound. But what they treasure most are the feelings. That one letter where someone said, "I'm proud of you." That one blurry photo where your smile was real. That one moment you decided not to give up. The future doesn't erase the past. It carries it. So before they step into a world beyond stars, They hold on to the smallest things, the last memory before tomorrow.
One life, no regrets. They stand at the edge of the universe, not just to explore the stars, but to answer a question humanity has asked for centuries. What does it mean to live fully? Was it the technology, the progress, the cloned bodies? No, it was the same answer as it was 1,000 years ago. To love without fear, to try without excuses, to fall, to fail, and to rise again. One life, no regrets. They realized that despite all the upgrades, the soul never needed an update. It still wanted purpose. It still needed connection. It still dreamed. And so they go into a future of unknowns, with hearts full of old hopes. Because the future isn't about forgetting who we were. It's about becoming who we were always meant to be. One life. Live it fully. No regrets. Ever.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Prism English. We'll see you next time, where English isn't just learned, it's lived.